The poor girl only had $5 for a blind date, the single dad. CEO at the next table watched her, and the little cafe on the corner smelled of cinnamon rolls and cheap coffee. It was Friday night, and Emily smoothed her thrift store dress for the 10th time, her palms clammy. She had saved all week to afford this blind date. Her best friend insisted she try. 5 crumpled dollars sat in her purse, her entire budget for the night. When her date finally arrived, she knew right away it wasn't going to be magical. He scrolled through his phone, ordered the most expensive thing on the menu, and barely looked at her. When the check came, he shoved it across the table. "Your half," he said flatly. Emily's cheeks burned. She opened her purse, the $5 trembling in her hand. The waiter looked at her with pity as her so-called date stood up and walked out without another word. At the next table, Daniel Hayes had been quietly observing. To the world, he was a powerful CEO. But tonight he was just a dad, bringing his little daughter for hot chocolate after ballet class. His daughter had been watching too, and she tugged at his sleeve. "Daddy, that lady looks sad." Daniel followed her gaze. The girl at the table was trying to smile through humiliation, folding the $5 bill and sliding it toward the check. Something in her dignity, in the way she tried to hide her pain, struck him. He stood up. "Excuse me, miss," he said gently. "You dropped this." He slipped a crisp 100 beside her bill. Emily blinked in shock. I can't accept that," she stammered. His daughter leaned forward with innocent eyes. "Please, Daddy says when someone's being treated badly, you don't just watch, you help." Emily's eyes softened. For the first time that night, she laughed. Daniel sat down across from her, asking if he and his daughter could join. Soon, the three of them were talking like old friends. Emily confessed she was working 2 jobs and studying at night, barely making ends meet. Daniel didn't reveal who he was, he simply listened. Impressed by her grit, when they left the cafe, Daniel pressed his card into her hand. "Not charity," he said when she hesitated. "Just maybe dinner again sometime, on me." Weeks later, Emily would discover his true identity, not just a CEO, but a man who had once known struggle himself, now raising his daughter alone. What began as a $5 blind date gone wrong became something neither of them expected, a second chance at love, dignity, and family. Emily checked her reflection in the cafe window before walking in. The glass showed a young woman in a plain blue dress, carefully ironed though worn at the seams. Her shoes were scuffed, her hair pinned back neatly. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the best she could manage. Inside, the cafe buzzed with couples laughing over latte. Emily clutched her purse tighter. Inside it were 5 crumpled dollars, her entire budget for this blind date her friend had pushed her into. Her date. Kevin waved lazily from a corner table. He didn't stand, didn't smile. His eyes barely flicked up from his phone. "You're late," he said. I came straight from work," Emily explained. Sitting down nervously, Kevin ordered the steak sandwich and a glass of wine without asking her. When the waiter turned to Emily, she just smiled and said, "Just water, please." She couldn't risk spending more than she had. The conversation was one-sided. Kevin bragged about his new car, his weekend parties, his gym routine. Emily listened politely, offering small comments. But he never asked a single thing about her. Finally, when the check came, Kevin shoved it across the table. "Your half." Emily froze. The total was nearly $40. Her hands trembled as she pulled out her $5 bill. I can cover what I had," she whispered. Kevin rolled his eyes. Unbelievable. He snatched his phone and walked out, leaving her humiliated in front of half the cafe. At the next table, a man had been watching. His little girl sat across from him, swinging her legs, sipping hot chocolate. Daniel Hayes was used to boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. But what caught his attention tonight wasn't business, it was the quiet dignity, of the young woman trying to pay for her own humiliation. "Daddy," his daughter whispered, tugging at his sleeve. "That lady looks really sad." Daniel's jaw tightened. He hated men who thought cruelty was strength. Without hesitation, he rose and walked to Emily's table. "Excuse me, miss?" he said gently, placing a folded 100 beside her $5 bill. "You dropped this." Emily blinked up at him, startled. "I didn't. That's not mine," his daughter piped up, smiling. "Please take it. Daddy says you should never let someone feel small when you can help." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. "I can't. It wouldn't feel right." Daniel slid into the chair across from her. "Then let's call it an investment. Dinner, with me. And maybe with this little one, too. She likes to test my taste in company." His daughter giggled. Emily laughed softly, the tension melting from her shoulders. "Well, if your business partner approves." That evening turned into hours of conversation. Daniel asked about her life, and Emily admitted she was juggling 2 jobs while studying nursing at night. She didn't sugarcoat her struggles. She had no reason to impress a stranger. Daniel, for once, didn't mention boardrooms or money. He simply listened, admiring her resilience. When they walked outside, the night air cooled against their faces. Daniel pressed a small card into her hand. "Not charity," he said, seeing her hesitate. "Just maybe call me for dinner. A real one this time." She looked down at the card. Daniel Hayes, CEO, Hayes Global, and her breath caught. She glanced up in disbelief. "You're just a dad," he interrupted softly, smiling at his daughter's sleepy head on his shoulder. "Just a man who thinks you deserve better than $5 and an empty chair." Weeks later, Emily did call. Dinner turned into laughter, laughter into trust, and trust into something deeper. And what began as a blind date, gone wrong, became the start of a story none of them had expected, one built not on money or power, but on kindness, courage, and second chances.